What's up, guys? Welcome back to Jimmy Talks. So I wanted to make this video for you, my loyal audience, for a couple of different reasons. First, security depends on you always. You cannot always depend on others to be there as your protection. Rest in peace to Charlie, by the way. That's not a dig at him in any way, shape, or form, but it stands true. So you need to know some basic stuff to look out for. Hell, some of you probably already know this from movies, video games, or training in real life already. But some of you in the audience are going to go to high-level places someday. Maybe that's politics, being a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or just somebody who faces the public. And I don't want anything bad to happen to you. That's why I'm putting this video out there. And now let's look at combat and how it changed. And unfortunately, standard operating procedures and new implementations are often put into place because of the errors and mistakes learned from past deaths. It's a grim way to look at it, but that's how it's fixed. We saw this in real time during the early global war on terror days when Humvees were constantly getting hit with IEDs and other roadside bombs. So improvised bottom armor was added to them, and that also led to the creation of the MRAP to counter the IED threat that we were seeing so much because guys were getting blown up left and right to it. We have to learn and adapt from past mistakes, whether as civilians or a trained military, and we need to fix and mitigate those risks. So let's just get into it now. The differences between outside and indoor events for security are huge. I wanted to use the most high-profile shooting that we've just had as an example and something that we can learn from because unfortunately, like I just said, we do need to learn from these things even if they are grim. So getting into this again, outside and indoor events, the differences between these are absolutely glaring, they're absolutely massive, and it's something we have to take into account. For someone who's a lower level political speaker, for example, maybe, someone who isn't just famous or just not well known yet, an outdoor event may have a low risk assessment. Chances would honestly be on someone's side that nothing bad happens, especially concerning higher elevation threats, like we saw with the sniper in Utah and the sniper in Butler, Pennsylvania, when Trump got shot in the ear. More on elevation later. But the danger of an outdoor event or a staging area is that there are many different angles of attack, lines of sight, lines of fire. And to just summarize this all up, you're in an open danger area. It's literally an open area. Even if it's out in the open with not many buildings around like in Butler, the threat still persists from higher elevated positions. Now, it gets even worse when there are lots of buildings nearby, which is exactly what the University of Utah campus had. Another downside of outdoor events is that security is harder to enforce. With checkpoints, weapons, pat-downs, you might not have the manpower or even simply just the money to cover everything. There are too many ways to get in and there's too many ways to get out. It's harder to control entry and exit points, which means it's harder to screen for suspicious people. But for people with larger profiles like Trump and, tragically, Charlie Kirk, as well as JFK, most of the time an indoor area is much safer. Even if it's not as easy to set up or it doesn't fit as many people, the trade-off is worth it. And the reason for that is because you can easily identify entry and exit points. It's a controlled area. It's a lot more controlled anyways. This makes pat-downs and screening way more effective because everything is consolidated. You can screen everyone who comes in, and if something bad still happens, you know where people can run. For example, someone could jump out of a window or make their own exit, but those are a lot harder than just blending into a crowd outside. A big part of winning fights or gunfights, any kind of confrontation, is controlling your environment. That's where you'll see 5 or 6 cop cars show up to a domestic call, even if it's just one angry person. If there's more people on site, that means there's more control of the situation. If I'd rather have 6 of my people against one opponent, for example, because 6 versus 1, the odds are extremely in my favor. This is really what it's all about. It's controlling your environment. Indoor events also cut down on lines of sight from the outside. An attacker has to get inside first, avoid being spotted, possibly get through another layer of security, and maybe even get to a drop point. And we're not even talking about all the screening they have to pass. So really, this shuts down a lot of options compared to an outdoor event where there are dozens of ways to get in. And really, just think about it. People sneak into outdoor concerts all the time when they don't have a ticket or they want to bring something in like drugs or alcohol. And it's because outdoor areas have way more entry points, including elevated ones. Speaking of elevation, as I said, I'll mention this later. This is where we're at now. This is going to be my next point. We've seen from multiple political assassinations and attempts that higher elevation gives the attacker a major advantage. Take the JFK shooter, for example, allegedly, since that whole story's messed up. But going by the official story, he was on the 6th floor of a building and he was high up. Then there was Charles Whitman at the University of Texas. He was on the 28th floor observation deck, which is approximately 230 to 300 feet in the air. The tower itself is 307 feet, according to Google. He killed 14 people, and police had a very hard time getting to him because there was no cover, and he was shooting down at them. Then the Trump shooting in Butler, Pennsylvania, where the guy on the roof almost got a headshot, was also at an elevated position. And now the Charlie Kirk shooter was on a campus building roof. So to get around this, I think security needs to start utilizing drones more often. We see drones used for landscaping, roofing, intel collection, basic everyday stuff, really. And it's not just on police forces, but it's also used heavily in Ukraine. We've all seen the footage of an RPG or a grenade strapped to a drone in Ukraine. Their eyes in the sky. A couple of people could keep a drone in the air at all times, watching every single rooftops. And what's also good about these is that they're relatively cheap. And another thing you can do is if one drone's battery die, you have two guys on two different drones. You can fly it back, dock it, and another guy can have the drone up while the other one's being recharged. So you always have one in the air. You should always have one in the air. I recommend having two people rotating drones. Drones in Ukraine, they're used not only offensively with grenades and rockets, but they are used defensively as well, like for intelligence gathering. You can also be using this for reconnaissance. That's the main goal here. Next, something that I think security teams should be implementing is better camera systems. They need to be having their own set of sticky or setup cameras. Think of Valkyrie from Rainbow Six Siege. You can see when you play the game, it's like, I hope that's a clear example. You have Valkyrie camera set up and it gives you way more of an advantage to be able to see what you have versus the shitty cameras that are set up on the map already. This is just an example that I want to use that the average person can relate to. But anyways, at venues, cameras are, as we've seen with the Charlie Kirk shooter, garbage, grainy, useless footage. A security team should bring their own systems and have one or two people monitoring it. You use cameras that can be moved around to cover key areas, especially high foot traffic spots like parking lots, doors, and stairwells. This is not expensive, and the big cost really is just buying them, and they don't need much maintenance after that. So I know this seems simple, and it is. Sometimes the fix doesn't need to be some magical, complex thing. It can be straightforward, and it can stop a lot of problems before they even start. So I wanted to analyze these situations and bring them to light and see that we can really mitigate these risks as they come. So really, that's all from me today. Just wanted to give a quick analysis on past shootings and what went down recently. Charlie Kirk, rest in peace to him. As grim as it sounds, we need to learn from past tactical mistakes so we can avoid them in the future. I hope this helps someone, and I hope that it saves a life one day. God bless, America first, and always. Jimmy Talks out.